There he is, Dr. John Delony. Hello, Dr. John Delony.
Hey, Jonathan, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. I'm assuming that before we went live here, I pushed the button and then it said go live, and we're figuring all this stuff out. But I'm assuming you got the $100 Venmo payment that I had processed. I cleared this with all of your publicity teams, and they said it would cost me $100 from my Venmo account to yours in order for you to shout out to my wife, who's your biggest fan, Natalie. Did you got that right?
So, two things. Number one, I'm so happy to talk to Natalie's lower, not quite as good half. That's awesome. And I'm
Yes.
grateful for Natalie. She joins my mom as my other fan, right? And number two, I don't have Venmo. My wife tells me I was born in the wrong century and I still
Oh,
want to pay for things in quarters. That means that the PR team here took that money. And so I'll make sure I get it.
I understand that that's how things work at the financial company that you work for. So,
Yes.
well,
Yes.
see, it used to be. So my wife has always had the thought that, well, she says, well, the real reason that I go to the gym is to get my stress relief. Which you talk about physical activity being a good stress reliever, but she also says like it's kind of her break from the kids. Our kids are 7 and 9. But I later found out that it was actually just an excuse to get some quiet to listen to Dave Ramsey. And now, so I used to, she would come home and say, well, Dave Ramsey said on the podcast, blah, 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 blah. And now we're out of debt and all this stuff. Well, now she comes home and guess what she says? Well, this is what John Delony told me at the gym
Oh
today. So,
no, man. They're weaponizing me. That's my biggest fear, that some dude's going to show up in the lobby of the show one day and be like, so, brother, I heard you told my wife to fill in the blank, right? And we're going to have to deal with that in the parking lot. But hey,
I,
hopefully
yeah,
she's telling you only good things.
you got it. You got it. So, okay. So I'm curious now. My details here say that you have two PhDs, and we know you have like experience in university settings, and you've worked in mental health for a couple of decades. And I'm wondering, how does that turn into the fact that you are kind of now with the Dave Ramsey company? You have your own show. You're helping people every single day. Like, how did that happen for you?
Wow, it's a serendipitous, wild story, man. But at the end of the day, I was given a talk at a university, not knowing anything about Dave Ramsey's transition plans or desire to expand his message beyond just money, but get into teaching people how to live well and whole lives. I had no idea about any of that. And so I was given a talk at a university to, I think it was about 1,000 students, new students and their parents. And his executive VP was in the audience dropping her daughter off. And she just said, I'm going to hire that guy. And so I spent my whole career working in education. And then my wife and I went to dinner one night and said, are we really going to do this? And we took a hard left turn and we have not looked back. And it's been a wild adventure joining this team.
Wow. I feel like when I listen to I love the fact that not only is it, your whole show, but you can check into clips of person by person in their life that they share with you. I'm sure to some degree you still feel like you're in education, but the thing that I hear in just about every conversation that you have with people, and that includes my wife, so I'm thankful for that, is that you just seem like you really value and probably just live and breathe empathy, or you see that
Mm.
empathizing with people is just like top notch. And I just wondered before we get into the anxiety stuff, if you could comment on just what empathy is.
Yeah, Jonathan, we live in a culture that has made every person and every challenge an issue. And then we've divided up the world into us's and them's. Where are you on this issue or that issue or those issues? And man, we have forgotten that there are human beings underneath all these issues. These are actual stories in people's lives, and they are hurting and they can't get out of bed or they don't want to go to bed. And so empathy for me is quickly, as fast as possible, transporting myself to their shoes, to their coveralls, to their kitchen table, and trying to get into their heart and mind and space and say, hey, forget all the issues, forget all the quote unquote right things you're supposed to say about this because I'm on part of this group or that group, and just say, hey, man, I'm so sorry that you're hurting. And let's start from there. And I mean, that's the most. It's what I just saw Jesus doing over and over and over, which is getting underneath all these issues and just showing up and saying, hey, hold on. Can I just get some water? And let's start there, right? Or here's some water. Let's start from that place, and then we'll have some other discussions later. And so it all starts for me is, hey, can I get a drink of water? Or hey, I've got a cup of water. Why don't you sit down and let's talk about this?
I mean, empathy. Yeah, empathy is like it's a feelings thing. Like with you're with somebody, when you're with somebody and they're not showing empathy, you feel that
Mm.
right away.
Right.
And then also you do feel when somebody's showing that to you. But it's also just something that just works. I mean, whether it's in the business setting or whether it's in a family setting or whatever. I mean, why do you think it just has such functional value too?
I mean, it's neuroscience. We have become obsessed with the right information, the right knowledge, the right answer. What's the right? And so when somebody says, "Hey, I'm hurting," we have so many quick and ready answers to fire back at them, tell them what they should be doing, what they should be feeling, and we don't enter people's space gently and quietly. And there, when you enter somebody's space, it's neurologic, man. We're the nerd term is we're co-regulated. We feel when somebody's heartbeat syncs up with ours, and when their eyes dilate with ours or they constrict with ours. We are designed to be in community with each other, not to just throw info at one another back and forth and back and forth. And so when you enter into somebody's space, or when you're hurting and you talk to a counselor or to that friend of yours that is a great listener, not a great judge or a great fixer, but a great listener, your whole body, your heart slows back down, right? And that's that presence, that presence, that presence. That's empathy, brother. It's not a series of facts to have the right answer. Sometimes the greatest thing you can say to someone who's hurting is nothing. Just be there, right? Just be there. And we don't, man, we just that's not the way we live anymore. We want to forward a good Instagram post about what you're struggling with, and I'm gonna get on with my day, right? And it's slowing down a little bit and having the courage and the time and space to enter somebody else's hurting season. Just be still and be there.
I love it. I love that message. So if you have a question or a comment you want to offer to Dr. John Delony here, just feel free to put that in the comments, and we'll flash that up on the screen and see if he has a thought for you. And if not, I'll just continue with mine. So I want to talk a minute about this topic of anxiety. I know you've got a book on the subject, and I know you got some myths in regards to
Yeah.
anxiety as well. So I thought maybe you could hit us with at least one of those myths. That's a good thing to know about.
I think probably the ultimate message is that if you're struggling with anxiety, well, let me back up. All anxiety is an alarm system that's letting you know that things in your life are either out of control, that you're not safe, or you have been disconnected. You're out of step with a community. You're lonely, right? You don't have people in your corner. And it's just an alarm system. And we have become so um, insane, literally, about shutting the alarm off and not dealing with the greater issue. And so the way I just like to describe it is, it's like your house is on fire and your fire alarm, your smoke alarm is going off in your kitchen, and you and some associate pastor and a counselor and your buddy are on a ladder trying to figure out how to get the batteries out of the smoke detector while your house is burning down around you. We've got an entire mental health culture and a personal development culture and a you fix you bro culture saying just shut the alarm off and you can go about your day. And so the number one myth is that if you have an alarm going off, that you're anxious, that you're broken. You're not. You're actually working pretty good. What's broken, what needs addressing is your ecosystem and your relationships, your work environment, what you think success is. It's these harder, bigger conversations. And sometimes it's just easier to duct tape a pillow around that alarm system and just get on with our day, right? Get to the next little
Mhm.
league practice or get to the next report or respond to that next text. And we don't deal with the greater issue. So you're not broken if you're anxious. Your body's working pretty good. It's telling you got things going on that you need to look at.
What about anxiety plus isolation? I mean, it's very interesting to me as a part of a Christian music radio station. Probably the number one phone call that we get when the phone rings, it's probably going to be a prayer request. And a lot of the times it's from people who, there are things that you would assume, like, well, if they have a well-connected community, maybe if they've got even, a pastor, somebody that they can reach out to, um, like it would just seem to be kind of a no-brainer that they would reach out to them. But the feeling is that a lot of people who reach out to us and may reach out to you as well, it's easy to reach out to somebody that you don't have to be in touch with
Mhm.
day to day, because it seems like it's interesting how the isolation can seem very attractive when you're dealing with anxiety, but yet maybe it's the
Yeah.
worst thing that you could do.
Man, you nailed it. I think the two fundamental questions that every single person asks, and this isn't some kind of woo-woo science. This is neurological, right? And it's theological. Is, can I be fully known? Can you actually know what's in the darkest parts of my heart? Can you know those thoughts I just had? Can you know what I did that one time? That joke I told that now I realize hurt people. Right? Can I be fully known, and can I still be loved? And we hedge that bet because we are so terrified to find out the second half of that answer is no, that we just live collapsed lives, man. And so if you listen to my show, the first few calls, I asked, like, why are you calling me? Like, I don't even know you. And the most common answer I got behind closed doors off air was, dude, I got nobody. And that was a major indictment of the way we run our churches now. It's a major indictment of the mental health community, the way we are friends, how we live our neighborhoods and our communities. Man, we live these isolated, segmented lives. Then you throw the pandemic on top of it. And our alarms are getting louder and louder because they're just trying to say, hey, you need people, you need people, you need people. And we're just squashing that alarm and, putting our fingers in our ears and just going la, 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 and just trying to get on with our day. Right. But yeah, loneliness fuels, it's gasoline on an anxious fire.
No doubt. If you have a question for John, you can just put it in the comments, and this is a very, we didn't prepare you for this, John, but there's a very controversial comment that's just been made by Angela, and it goes like this. Oh, shoot.
Bring it on, man.
Hi, she says. So that's our first one. Angela says, hi.
Yes.
But a couple of others coming in, like, very much in just general terms. Sometimes it's hard to put language to it. Like Lori is popping on and saying, hi, I have anxiety. Or you got Christy here that's saying, hello.
Lori, I do too.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Hello. Welcome to our anxiety group here on Zoom or whatever this is. Christy, Danville, I got anxiety at times. What's the best way to deal with it? So it's like, thankfully, you've got a book that you can check out, which is a pretty quick read. I mean, you could kind of muscle through that. But I guess in general terms, let's just say, okay, I'm watching this. I'm realizing that this weird stuff that I'm dealing with probably falls under the subject of anxiety. Like, what's a step that I could take today so that I could be a little bit better tomorrow?
I think the first thing I want folks to do is to get in a relationship with somebody somehow, whether it's a professional one, a friend, and I want you to actively ask yourself what these alarms are trying to tell you. Most of us have become so disconnected from our own realities that we think the alarms are some politician's fault or some school system's fault or somebody else's thing. And I want people to sit down with a pen and a paper and just start writing out, what are those alarms trying to tell you? Are you lonely? Do you not have people that you can trust and be honest with? And listen, I have perfected the art of being completely alone in a crowded room, surrounded by loved ones. I can be alone at my dinner table, surrounded by 2 kids that love me and my wife, who is my biggest cheerleader. I can be totally alone. And she'll even tell me, hey, you're not with us right now, man. And so where are you completely alone? Where are you not safe? Where are you out of control? And listen, Jonathan, if you're not feeling a little bit anxious these days, there's probably something wrong with you, right? Things are nuts, right? And so I want to norm anxiety. We should be feeling bananas. And that means some of us have to turn the news off. Some of us have to put better things like your radio station in our ears instead of just another headline and another headline. Some of us need to, I have my social media, I have to do it for work. And so I've got it on a separate phone that I now leave at the office because I couldn't control myself at home. So I leave it here and I will answer those things the next day. And I already feel my heart rate a little bit lower. I'm a little bit more present with my kids and my wife, which then lowers the need for my body to set those alarms off. And it's just a gradual thing. We're going to take a walk every night after dinner. I'm going to get an exercise. I'm going to have a gratitude program. Like it's these little bitty steps, but it starts with intentionality. What are these alarms telling me? What's out of whack in my life?
Love it. I want to talk about the church thing here for a minute. I know you talk about finding somebody. Okay.
You're going to get me canceled now, question. Jonathan.
Yeah, I know. Well, sorry, we're being called off on this one. Let's go to Jessica first. So Jessica,
no, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
How can you live more in the moment and not always look to the future? That's a lot of where my anxiety comes from.
Yeah, I like to say anxiety is a fear of the future, and it's this apprehension about what's going to come. It usually falls under this, the nerd word is ruminating, right? The worrying thoughts, the spinning thoughts. And often those thoughts feel super important. Like, I need to get a new deep freezer and fill it full of meat, and I need to get a bunch of bullets and coffee because that's going to protect me from fill in the blank, right? Whatever the thing is. And you got to write those things down and get them out of your head and get them. They just take up rent-free space in your brain, man. Writing them down makes them real, and you can look at them and just demand evidence from them. Seriously, are we going to be trading bullets and coffee? Really? Is that really what's going to happen? And usually you're like, no, it's not, right? And if it is, I'll deal with that then. I had one really wise buddy. He's a finance guy, and I kept saying, oh yeah, but what about this? And what about this? What about this? And he said something so magic to me, Jonathan. I got 2 doctorate degrees. I've got years of grad school. And this one guy looked at me and said, hey, I don't have a meteorite plan. If we get hit by a meteorite, I'm going to deal with that when that happens. And it was just this freeing, like, oh yeah, I don't have to plan for every crazy second because I can't, right? And so when somebody says, I'm really struggling with thoughts about the future, I write them down. What can I control right now? And the rest of that garbage, man, I just let it go because I can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's the truth. You mentioned like nature, going for a walk and stuff like this. So Sandy is saying that recently she took up photography, and she said when she's like outside with her camera, looking for barns and wildflowers and things like that. There's animals. She talks about being in the present moment so that her anxiety goes to sleep. I feel like that's an interesting thing. There's something about nature, something about getting outside, especially this time of year, right?
Yeah, one of the things we would do, and we'd show up to a crisis situation when I was working with the police department, and we would show up to a major tragedy. One of the signals one of my partner would look across the room and just make a head motion that would be from the back of her head to the front of her head, meaning I got to get somebody out of a limbic state, this idea that there's still an active something going on, to, but you're okay now. And we would do things like count ceiling tiles or just go for a walk and breathe. I love what Sandy's saying, looking for beauty, because it's there if you'll just stop and look for it. And the cool thing about our lives is most of the time we get to choose what we look for. And what we look for, we find. And so if you're looking for people who are hurting your feelings or hurting you, or if you're looking for drama and tragedy, you will find it. And if you look for barns and flowers and birds and people who are doing lovely things, you'll find them too.
Love it. I was thinking about having a headphones contest with you because I had some really sweet headphones I was going to wear here, and I felt like they looked pretty cool. But now I'm seeing your headphones, and those are like
mine are way
I'm
cooler
David,
than
you're
yours,
Goliath type headphones. So that's wow, that's cool.
Thanks, man. Hey, so what were you talking about the church? You were mentioning something about the
going back
church.
to that, right?
Let's do it.
The church thing. So we're saying like the isolation thing is easy to fall into, and you're saying that your callers, our friends that listen, will say things like if you really maybe press them on it, they'll say, I don't have anybody, but yet maybe they already go to church, but it can be frustrating. I mean, I myself have been in a situation where I was going through a really hard time. My dad had passed away. I kind of confide in the pastor, and he really helps us out. But then something emerged, and there was a lot of pressure, and I began to feel uncomfortable, and I kind of felt like I got thrown under the bus. And I hate that. But at the same time, it's hard to even trust somebody that you're sitting to listening, maybe preach a sermon every week. But yet it still seems like the church is supposed to be a really good place that we're supposed to open up to people, right?
Right. So, man, I'm pretty vocal about this. Our churches have really doubled down on the show, really doubled down on the programs and the curriculums and having all the right answers on all the right issues. And we have absolutely abdicated our responsibility to be a hospital for hurting people. And so instead of being a place where everybody's welcome to come in and say, oh, you too, me too, sit by me. Let's have this conversation. Here's some water. It has been, when you get your stuff right, which none of us have, then you're welcome to come be a part of this program. And then you can participate. And man, that is not the way church is designed. It's a weekly coming together, or a bi-weekly or tri-weekly coming together of hurting, sick, stumbling people that they can all look around the room and say, hey, I got some water. Hey, I got some bread. Hey, I got a couple of fish. Are y'all okay? Are you okay? I'm okay. And we all limp out together knowing we're not in this alone. And our country, our communities, our neighborhoods are desperate for churches to turn off the smoke and the lasers and focus back on people. How are people welcomed into our buildings? Hospitality's got to be the next 25, 30, 50, 100 years of the church. Has to be.
I love it. That's the truth. We got a couple more minutes here with Dr. John Delony. So if you want to pop in here with a question, just put it in the comments. Gwenna saying thanks for sharing on this topic today. I think that's great, and I highly recommend. I mean, just find John on YouTube or wherever you can and check out his book or his show, because I like also that even if I'm kind of getting ready and I got to get out of the house, but I got 7 minutes, I can listen to you kind of tackle a quick topic. Like the one I listened to this morning was, I'm 37 years old and I have no friends. What do I do? And you took the person through a really cool thing, Yeah. So.
Well, I appreciate that. And hey, listen, I'm gonna send you 4 or 5 books, and you can give them out to your listeners, and however y'all want to do that, and I'll send them your way. It's a real quick, man. It is short. As an academic nerd, I kept looking at our team thinking, guys, this is like the intro. And they said, no, this is as clear a message as we need to have it. And so I'll send you some. You can feel free to give them away to folks who need them, your listeners. It's been helpful. It was a helpful exercise for me to write it and really distill down all the drama in my head.
So we'll pick some of our commenters here to win one of those books. We appreciate that. And I think the last question I wanted to ask was just about grief. I just mentioned that we're actually having a seminar here at the radio station in our warehouse seating area here in a couple of weekends. And when we put those tickets on sale, it's like they went so quick, because it's I think WebMD said it's like 57% of people's lost somebody really close in the last 3 years or something like that. And I mean, where do you start when you feel like grief is just consuming your life?
We have we've just pathologized, which is the nerd word for saying we've made evil this idea of discomfort, this idea of hurting, this idea of sitting and just understanding that bad stuff happens. And I have a buddy of mine who's a psychologist, and he actually dug it up. And I think it was the 20s or the 30s. And it was either Southern Living or Good Housekeeping or Red Book, one of those magazines, the old school lifestyle magazines, the original ones, when they formally declared that front room in our house is no longer called the parlor. It's now called the living room. And since then, we have outsourced death, outsourced aging. We've outsourced these things to people who give us facials and chemical peels and Botox, and we don't deal with death anymore. We give it to somebody who works in the funeral arts, and we have just sanitized ourselves from the reality that life is hard. And now we look up 50, 60, 70 years later, and I don't know how to grieve. I don't know. We don't do it as a community. You certainly can't grieve by yourself. Grief demands that other people witness it with you. And so now we're just lost, and we get 3 days off of work to deal with our mother who's passed away, and then I need you back here on Monday so you can, right? And we just have a whole culture that says, yeah, that stinks. All right, move on. Stinks to be, okay, let's go on. And man, we have an entire culture whose souls are just wrapped up in their chests because we don't know how to grieve. We don't know how to grieve the fact that our kids didn't get graduation. We don't know how to grieve something silly like they lost prom, right? Or they lost their 5th grade grad. We don't have any words for this stuff. And so we just shove it down and we make a Facebook post about it and go about our day. And so we have to, as a culture, reclaim grieving as a season. We have to be able to sit in other people's uncomfortable space. And we have to be honest about saying out loud, I miss this. I miss them. This stinks. This hurts. And it's going to take me several weeks, months, years to work through this. And I need you to sit in it with me. And again, going back to churches and neighbors and communities, we've got to reclaim that. So I applaud you, Jonathan. Good for you guys for having a discussion on grief, just how to do it, right? It's a skill that we've lost and we have to reclaim because it's messing with our brains. It's sounding these alarms, right? All day, every day. Good. What a blessing for you and your community.
I'm thankful that we have the chance to do it. I think just with a couple minutes left here, we're just going to, it was very interesting. Something you said, I think, hit 2 different people in 2 different ways all at the same time because it comes from the heart and the brain at once. But first we have Kimmy checking in on here and kind of giving sort of the spiritual aspect of it. And she's saying things like, well, I think, it's a spiritual issue. I won't go through the whole comment, but basically, we just have to sort of submit to whatever God is putting in our life and stop trying to kick against that. Then at the same time, almost the same moment, Stephanie pops in and says, well, actually, I'm finding that it's a cognitive issue. You know, we've gotten into bad habits and our bodies are getting used to that and it fires off and all this kind of stuff. She said, we have to teach our lizard brains. I
Mhm.
take that personally, but I also fully agree with it.
Yeah.
So cognitive, spiritual, I mean, how do you put those things together?
It's an infinity sign, right? It's a figure eight. And we are designed with these extraordinary threat detection systems that in many ways were designed to check out a tiger at the front of the cage. I mean, in front of a cave. And our brain didn't want us asking, is that a nice tiger? Is that a tiger we should pet and cuddle with? It just said, run, right? It cut off the thinking part of our brain. And then all of a sudden, overnight, we've gone from horse covered wagons to Teslas and to email dings and text and Facebook messages and kids and video games and Zoom learning. And our brain is detecting everything as a threat, every eyebrow move, everything. And it's overwhelmed. And so then our bodies start reacting. It starts setting off those alarms. My stomach drops. I get that anxiety feeling in my chest. It takes off to the races. And so that's when I have to think through, am I really in danger? Am I not safe now? And how am I not safe? And at the same time, man, sometimes our bodies, the alarms, man, they get real sensitive. And I need to sit down and talk to somebody, process trauma, learn how to recalibrate those alarms. And so it's both and. I do want to there is something good about acknowledging your role in life and being grateful and peaceful with where you are. And there's something about acknowledging what we just talked about, grief. I don't like it, and that's okay. And I want this to be different for me and my kids. I'm stuck in a system, and I'm going to take little baby steps so that my grandkids can have different lives than I have. I think it's both and, but I think grieving is a big part of that. And I also think, man, if you try to overthink it, man, we can we have that. Look at the self-help section at the local Barnes and Nobles, or for you young folks, just look on Amazon, right? We can't think our way out of some of this. We have to relationship our way out of it. We have to grieve our way out of it. We have to move our bodies, change how we eat. We have to do a lot of physical things so that our thinking brain can come back online.
We got to hear this. Well, I mean, look the guy up, John Delony. Check out his show, check out his book. And if you've commented here today, or even if you're watching this after the fact, just make a comment and we'll be enter you to win his book on anxiety. So, John, we really appreciate your time. Appreciate, even though you didn't get my payment, that you said hello to my wife. And this is valuable stuff.
I am grateful that she keeps you around, man. She is doing good work, and she'll be rewarded in the years to come. Hey,
You and
thank
me
you for
both.
having me on. I appreciate you tackling this tough topic and during tough times. It's a blessing to know that you guys are out there having hard conversations, and I'm grateful for you.
No, we appreciate the same for you. You have a good one.
All right, brother. You too.